Before we get started, hey, I got a new channel. Look, it's new, it's brand new. It's called Topic Arlo, and it's all about simple, casual videos on just like whatever topical news stuff is happening at any given time. So if you like me talking about stuff, and you want a little bit more of me talking about stuff, go check it out, please and thank you. On to the video. Pair it up! Hello my friends and welcome to another episode of Spicy Take Salad, where I read your controversial Nintendo and sometimes greater gaming opinions and laugh at them. Just kidding, we respect all opinions here. WarioWare as a concept is fun, but should honestly not be priced any higher than $10 for the quality and size of the game. Okay, I completely agree with you that Nintendo does have issues pricing these kinds of smaller games. Like, it's kind of always been a thing, but especially ever since they merged their home console and handheld divisions, there's no real like good balance between like the amount of content that you get and the price. You know, everything is either a humongous AAA experience for $60 or a tiny little mini game collection for $50. They make a lot of smaller to kind of middle ground games and they should be priced appropriately. However, I think that $10 is taking it a little bit too far. I think that is that right there is undervaluing those games. I think that the Nintendo like standard of quality is still there. I think these games probably have bigger budgets than they seem to have. They still put a lot into them. So I'm more thinking like, you know, 20, 25, 30 bucks, you know, somewhere kind of in the 20 to 30 range. 10's too low though. Like that I think that's it's too low. Like even in the indie realm, you know, games with much smaller budgets than games like this, you know, like $10 won't get you very far anymore. You know, like the era of the $10 game is kind of going the way of the dodo. So I think 25, the end. Advance Wars is better than Fire Emblem. I do not agree or disagree exactly. I haven't played a lot of both of these series, but I have played a bit, and they're different. Fire Emblem has a much bigger emphasis on the story and the characters and the world building, and then of course it's all about raising up these individual units to use in battle, whereas Advance Wars, you know, it does have a story, but it's not quite as important, and it's more about deploying expendable units. So, you know, both are tactics games, but they kind of go about it in a slightly different way. And you really got me thinking about the differences between them. This is fun. You know, Fire Emblem, it's the RPG mechanics and all the background stuff to raise them up, but then Advance Wars, you don't get that, but that means it's a more level playing field, so it's less complex and it's less satisfying in that way, but then that means that like each map, each scenario is more like a puzzle to solve. I don't know. They're very similar in a lot of ways and very different in a lot of ways, and therefore I would say that believing one is better than the other is a perfectly fine opinion to have. I really don't know which I prefer. I think I would need to play more of both of them to know for sure. I really want to play the Advance Wars remake. I really need to get on that. It's too expensive though. See, if it sold it for $25, then you'd have a deal. As much as I'd love to see cult classic Nintendo series, F-Zero, Wario Land, Earthbound, etc. return, I don't think Nintendo would add enough to a new entry in any of those series to match up against the indie games that were directly inspired by them. That's a big one. That's a really big one right there. I think it's kind of a, sort of a chicken and egg situation. I think it's true that Nintendo doesn't really know what to do with most of those series, and that's exactly why we haven't gotten new entries, because in a lot of cases, Nintendo really does want to make sure they do something really new and really novel with a series, instead of just putting out a new one just to do it. But if they did put one out, then that would mean that they had come up with something. You know, they felt confident in their ability to match to live up to the legacy. To get a little more specific though, I think that in most cases Nintendo absolutely is capable of doing great things with these series. I think they could absolutely do a great new F-Zero or a Wario Land or a lot of other things, Golden Sun, that kind of stuff. However, I will say Earthbound is kind of an exception. I'm kind of with you there on Earthbound. Earthbound specifically, the Mother series, has inspired such incredible games with such incredible stories, and they're so like emotional and impactful, and that's not really the kind of game that Nintendo does. That's just that's not their wheelhouse, you know? So I think you actually might be right that they might as well not even try to make another Mother game, because I honestly, like, I actually, indies have taken that kind of format, that style, that inspiration, and gone to such amazing places with it that it might just be true that Nintendo shouldn't even try anymore. I mean, you know, maybe get the original creator on it if he somehow changed his mind and had an amazing story, but at the same time, like, is Nintendo even gonna be interested in publishing the kind of thing that he would want to do that would really resonate with fans of that whole style of game? I don't really know. In most cases, though, I really do think that they are capable. You know, they took a really long time to make a new Metroid game, a 2D one, when the whole rest of the industry and all the indies were making all of these Metroidvanias, and it was like, wow, how's Nintendo gonna top that? And then they made Dread, and they showed that, like, they really are capable of doing really great things, and you really can't, you can't downplay the power of a big budget, you know? Other Metroidvanias out there, even indie ones, might have better, like, progression and, like, non-linearity and overall design than Metroid Dread, but then Dread, like no other Metroidvania feels as good to play, you know? Like, because it's got that big budget feel that, like, really, it really goes a long way. The lack of portable gaming experiences on the market offered by Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS has genuinely become a problem for some styles of game, and Nintendo should make a cheap portable system alternative to fill this niche, despite the Switch and mobile games kind of filling it already. And this is a very good opinion here. This definitely plays into the whole, the one we had earlier about smaller games and pricing. And again, I completely agree that Nintendo is kind of struggling in this area. Like why does every game have to have a budget of millions and millions of dollars? Why does every single game have to be sold for $50 or more? Why can't we get smaller titles? Why can't we get, like, really little titles, really little budget titles, you know? Like go back to the Game Boy Advance. Just make those games again, you know? Like, we still love those games. Just make some like that. There are just some series and gameplay styles that just felt more at home on a handheld. Like, I absolutely agree. However, I do not think that creating hardware for those titles is the right move. I absolutely don't. Selling hardware is difficult. Like, building an install base, like, that's really hard, and it's time consuming and it's expensive. I think Nintendo's better off just making more games like this, you know? Like, just focus. It's more about their mindset rather than the hardware that it's on. They could just as easily be selling smaller titles on Switch in the way that they used to sell, you know, the kinds of games they used to sell on DS, Game Boy, and that stuff. If they wanted to be cute about it, this just came to me. I'm imagining like for the next, like if it's the Switch 2 or whatever, I'm imagining like a system within a system, you know? It's kind of like, it's like a specific emulator, like, and you get it from the eShop, but it plays specifically these kinds of, like, small games, and you're still just buying a game and playing it on your Switch, but it's like, I don't know, it's fun. It's got its own little, like, its own little launcher, its own little software on the Switch, and you specifically play those games on. I don't know, I think it's kind of cute. Anything else, though? Nah. I mean, don't get me wrong. The idea of Nintendo, like, just for fun, putting out a new, just little dedicated handheld system for, like, smaller games, it would be cool. I do think that would be fun, but I don't think it's the right business move for them. As much as I love the series, I have to admit that Zelda games have never had a good story. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Okay, like, I have really enjoyed stories in Zelda games, like absolutely. But if I really dig deep, I really look for the truth in this, it probably is because I am just so engrossed by the experiences and I am so invested in the world and the lore and all that stuff. But it's true that they've rarely been, like, amazing, you know? I mean, I think the closest you've probably gotten is, like, I don't know, Ocarina of Time had a really good story, because it kind of, like, retold and reinvented everything, and then Majora's Mask was, like, a big side story, but Nintendo's problem is that they just want to keep telling the same story over and over again. I honestly think they have the potential to tell good stories, but it's those limitations. It's needing to take place in the same worlds with the same characters and doing the same things over and over again that is just, it's really limiting. And at its absolute best, story in a Zelda game is really, really fun, but again, it's because I just love Zelda, you know? If I take that story and I compare it to a different game that you say like, oh yeah, this game or this game series is famous for having such a good story, you hold them next to each other and like, there's no comparison. Zelda doesn't really compare. I gotta be honest. And it's really disappointing because Nintendo themselves have said that Zelda is their story series, you know? Like Mario doesn't usually have to have a story, but that's okay. We have Zelda if we want to tell stories. But it's like you don't even want to tell stories with Zelda. I think Tears of the Kingdom was a real wake-up call. Like even when the potential to tell a really amazing, cool story is there, they're just kind of not interested. And yeah, it's a bummer. I think the claim that Nintendo ignores its IPs is an exaggeration at best, and most of them get at least one release per generation, and if they don't, it's normally because that team is working on other projects. I mean, I think it might be safe to say that there are fewer of those like forever dormant IPs than maybe it seems based on how we talk about it, you know? But no, they really do have a lot of series that don't get a lot of games. And like right now, it's easier to say something like this, but like before the Switch, it was like, no, we hadn't gotten a 2D Metroid in forever, you know? And we hadn't gotten a 3D Metroid in forever. Federation Force didn't really feel like it counted. It took 10 years to get Pikmin 4. You've got Golden Sun, you've got Earthbound, you've got F-Zero, you've got Wario. Like there really are a lot of series that are not getting games. Like there really are. They're kind of just objectively are. And like I would say that like, oh, the teams are working on other things. That's not a good excuse. I like get a different team, you know? like there are other, like, get a different team. Even if it's like, oh, we haven't made game from X series for 20 years because we've been working on Y series this whole time. Well, it's like, okay, but that's still Nintendo not working on X series, you know? Like that is still it going dormant. So, I kind of get where you're coming from, but no. Classic thing nobody agrees with me on. For me, Phantom Hourglass is a top 3 Zelda game, and Spirit Tracks is at the bottom. Wow. Yeah, that's a real interesting one. That I can understand how you can't seem to find anyone who agrees, because that is an interesting opinion. I mean, it is rare to find people who have widely differing opinions on Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, because generally, if you have problems with one of those games, you're gonna have a problem with the other, because it's the whole, I mean, like, I'm one of those people. I'm not a big fan of those games. The touch controls, I don't like it. But I generally believe that, like, a lot of the stuff that Phantom Hourglass did wrong was kind of made better in Spirit Tracks. So, like, I mean, I get that, like, you turned the boat was a lot more free, and you turn it to the train, and now it's a little bit less free, but then, like, yeah, I don't know. I think this is one of those cases where every game hits every person differently, and sometimes for very, very different reasons, and you really can't predict why a person will like one game or does like one game better than another. Sometimes it just works out that way. If you think Phantom Hourglass is a top 3, but Spirit Tracks is literally on the bottom, more power to you. I respect that. I see a lot of people complaining that the Switch UI has less personality than the Wii U and 3DS, but I would take the fast performance of its menus over personality any day of the week. 100,000% agree, all the way. Completely agree. You're right! I see a lot of people who are generally very angered up that the Switch doesn't have, like, themes and all that stuff, but, like, nah, I don't know, the 3DS and Wii U, like the Wii U especially, it just took so long to boot up. It was so annoying to get to no, with the Switch, it's just like, it's easy, you go to the home screen and back to the game super fast. It's clear that they made it simple so that it would run well, and it does run decently well most of the time, not the eShop, but the rest of it is okay. And like, yeah, no, that's me. Like keep it clean and simple. You know, you look at Xbox and PlayStation and the menus are so complicated. There's just junk all over the screen, I love that the Switch has such a clean, simple UI. I desperately hope that the next system more or less keeps it the same. Throw in some themes or colors or whatever if you want, but like, nah, keep it simple. I got simple brain. Keep it simple, please. Super Metroid is probably the worst game in the series. Yeah, it says Super Metroid. I can understand the school of thought that Super Metroid maybe hasn't aged that well, and all the games that came after it are kind of better just because they control better. You know, it's kind of a quality of life thing. I get that, but like, original and Samus and Return of Samus, like, those games are only more archaic, only more limited. Like every problem that you have with Super is a worse problem in those two original games. I mean, yeah, like what are some of the common problems with Super Metroid? The controls aren't great. Okay, well, like, imagine playing the game except with 2 buttons, you know? Oh, you get lost a lot. Okay, the first game has a bunch of rooms that are literally identical. I don't get it. I don't get one bit, I'm sorry. We don't need a Paper Luigi side mode in the Thousand Year Door remake. It would be better to just have new side endgame content for the current story. Completely agree. Absolutely agree there. In the game, Luigi tells his own little story about his own little adventure, and I see everybody going on and on about how they should add that adventure to the game, and I'm just like, no, they absolutely should not. That whole thing is funny because you don't see the real story. Because it's barely, I mean, like, I don't want to spoil it because, like, people are going to be playing the game soon. But, like, the fact that you don't see it, that's the joke. If you turn it into a real game, into a real mode or whatever, then it's just, it loses its magic. Yeah, if you're going to do something, add something to the game, just make it actually new. Not the Luigi story thing, no. Whatever Nintendo does with the launch of the Switch 2, because it is an iterative model, it will not be as successful and will be on the Wii U end of the spectrum in terms of total console sales when all is said and done. I can definitely understand the idea that if it is an iterative idea, then it might not do as well. You know, it's that whole thing where whether it's a game or a movie or whatever, the sequel doesn't usually do as well unless there's some really big shakeup. If you just do the same thing, but it's the next one, then you're gonna get most of the same people moving over to the new one, minus the people who lost interest, so just a natural decline. However, you can't just look at the hardware. You know, you can't just look at the thing itself. You have to look at everything, all the different variables, the games themselves. That's a massive variable. How much hype there is for them, and just like the trends of the market and the wants of the people themselves. There's so many things that can affect how much something like this would sell. But then to say on the Wii U end of the spectrum, that is way too far. That is just absurdly too far. I mean, maybe you could say like the 3DS end of the spectrum, you know, still a really good success, not like the best success in the world, but still pretty good. Like there is nothing Nintendo could do. They would have to screw up so overwhelmingly bad to do Wii U numbers again. In fact, if it's an iteration on the Switch, that's not possible. Same thing again, might see less success, maybe, but not Wii U numbers. No, the Wii U was a dismal failure. What, like 14 million? The Switch is not gonna go from 150, 160 million, whatever it lands on, down to 14 million if it's the same idea again. That's just, it's not even close. Well, that's it for this episode of Spicy Take Salad. Stay tuned for next time when we read more of your spicy takes. See you later.